reign of Kathleen Kennedy is coming to an end. It's been on the cards for a long while, and our good friend and future ruler of the Earth just added some further possible detail to what we already knew. Despite how highly regarded she is in the industry, Kathleen Kennedy is by all accounts I've heard quite the piece of work. In this video then, I will explore what Kathleen Kennedy might be like as the manager of a company, the distinct factions of Lucasfilm that have developed under her watch, and what shape the end of her reign may take. Kathleen Kennedy has run Lucasfilm ever since George Lucas himself installed her, just prior to Disney acquiring the company. And yes, that's what happened. Disney didn't put her there, they inherited her. Lucas himself put her in charge before the deal went through, presumably so the longtime producer of his friend, Steven Spielberg, would continue to protect his vision after he would no longer have the influence to do it himself. Alas, it would appear that of all the people he could have installed to run Lucasfilm, he chose the wrong one. Maybe he should have vetted her better. Maybe he should have gone with someone like Filoni, I don't know. At the time though, Kennedy probably looked like a good choice. You see, Kathleen Kennedy enjoys a great deal of respect from many within the industry. In recent years, there's those successfully lobbying to get the job.
So when are you writing a Star Wars movie?
Oh, please, Queen Kathleen Kennedy.
And then there is everyone else, who for decades have respected her and showered her with praise for all the great movies she has produced. And to be fair, she has produced some of the greatest movies of all time, let there be no doubt about that. But nearly all of those movies were directed by, or at the very least, also produced by, Steven Spielberg. Steven Spielberg, of course, just so happens to be one of the greatest directors of all time. So it just might be that how good all the movies she produced for him ended up actually had more to do with him than it did her. Still, she must have been pretty good to work with Steven Spielberg, right? Well, she actually started out working as a personal assistant for John Milius. And it was in that capacity she first met Spielberg, who was impressed with her. Here is what he had to say about her impressive skill set.
I remember Kathy came into the room with her steno pad and her pencil, and she was horrible at taking notes, and she was terrible at, she didn't really know how to do it very well. But what she did know how to do was interrupt somebody in mid-sentence.
In the real world, we're not. We're terrible people.
Or you can make bad choices.
Well, you make bad choices, but you...
We'd be pitching ideas back and forth, and Kathy, who's supposed to be writing these ideas down, suddenly put her pencil down and would say something like, and what if he didn't get the girl, but instead he got the dog?
So, she was good at interrupting others mid-sentence and spewing out some drivel. In my personal professional experience from the world of banking and finance, people who aren't wise enough to sit still, listen, consider, and then speak measured and informed words have two major attributes. The first is that they're pretty weak at what they do. They may not fully grasp the complexities and finer subtleties of the subject matter at hand, but they need everyone else to think they do. See, they don't want their own lack of skill and understanding to be exposed. That would be bad for their ego. So they have a need to assert themselves in every situation, appear to always be on top. That is their second attribute. Now, I'm not saying for a fact that Kathleen Kennedy is like that. I've never met her and I've never worked with her. But in my experience, the people whose defining trait is interrupting others mid-sentence to spurt out the first thing that comes to their mind generally do so because they have a need to assert themselves. And that need arises from not wanting to be exposed as the, for lack of a better term, incompetence that they really are. Anyway, Steven Spielberg hired her. Maybe she's good at organizing the job that needs to be done on set. Maybe she had some good ideas. And maybe even the ideas that weren't any good still inspired Spielberg to come up with even better ideas that made it on screen. I don't know. But there would be value in that, so she kept working with him, riding the coattails of his success. And you know what? That worked out great for all involved. Working with Steven Spielberg, whatever it was that she was actually doing for him, worked great. So how could she screw up Star Wars so badly when she was made an executive and placed in charge of it? The Peter Principle is a concept in management developed by Lawrence J. Peter, which observes that people in a hierarchy tend to rise to their level of incompetence. What this means is that employees are promoted based on their success in previous jobs they were good at, until they reach a level at which they are no longer competent, as skills in the previous job they were good at do not necessarily translate to the new job. In the case of Kathleen Kennedy, this would mean that being good at whatever Spielberg wanted her to do and giving him brand new ideas by way of interrupting him mid-sentence with hers does not mean she is fit to manage a film studio and all of its entertainment brands, which indeed she was not. That's why the Star Wars brand is in such a poor state, and Lucasfilm itself has become a house divided. And it has. Before Kathleen Kennedy, Lucasfilm consisted of people who loved the Star Wars that first and foremost George Lucas created, because to be clear, he wasn't the only one. But be that as it may, it was a house united behind his vision. Emphasis on was. Perhaps it is because everyone else who worked for him were all about his vision that Lucas didn't properly vet if Kathleen Kennedy too would protect his vision. Maybe he just took for granted that she would. If so, that was a mistake, because she did no such thing. Quite the contrary. Kennedy never had any love for Star Wars. She never really understood Star Wars. She was all about her ideopolitical conviction, and now unshackled by Spielberg. That is what she infused into both Lucasfilm and Star Wars. The people she hired to help her run the company were fellow activists like her, and so Lucasfilm became a house divided. It became divided between the activists that she brought in and the Star Wars fans that were there from before. But in the early days, they had no champion, so if they wanted to keep their jobs, they too needed to fall in line with Queen Kathy's commands, even if those commands weren't any good. Kathleen Kennedy ended up doing every mistake any studio executive could possibly do, which is why, after loads of creative disagreements, only a few of the directors she hired to do Star Wars movies actually ended up making a Star Wars movie. On her watch, all the original cast returned, but were never reunited on screen. On her watch, Lucasfilm became a revolving door of talent, and every single movie she put out had a nightmare production, with loads and loads of reshoots. With the exception of The Last Jedi, of course. The one movie that really needed reshoots to address the untimely passing of Carrie Fisher and thereby prevent the next movie from becoming Weekend at Bernie's. But no, Rise of Skywalker indeed became Weekend at Bernie's. On her watch, the Star Wars brand devalued. On her watch, Bob Iger had to step in and have others do the job she should have done. It might have helped her as a producer, but her skill set of interrupting others mid-sentence and asserting herself could only take her so far.
Let's talk about George and all of, because I don't think people understand. Let's just rattle off all the breakthroughs that he had.
Well, I'll start by saying,
we'll go around. This is like a party game. We'll go around, everybody say one.
When I came into the company, I was astounded to find out that there were over 126 patents. Literally new technology that he had created.
It's like
That's pretty
Edison's
astounding.
lab. So let's start here.
Look how everyone else is smart enough not to speak out of turn. Only one person at that table had to try to assert herself and take over the situation. In some sense, make the show all about her. And that is the one person that should not be running the show. Which indeed she won't, not for much longer. For quite some time already, we've said that Kathleen Kennedy wouldn't be fired due to the optics of the situation. It would be a bad look for Disney and for Bob Iger's future presidential ambitions to outright fire the one female executive that has done so much for, the cause that Hollywood rallies behind. This was a major concern, as it has been opined to me from people with knowledge of the situation that if she were to be fired, Kathleen Kennedy would not go down quietly. They had to extend her contract the last time it was up for renewal. In no small part because Star Wars was such a hot mess midway through a trilogy that no one else wanted to touch it. So she was extended quietly, without fanfare and without any kind of official announcement or show of support. When the contract is up this time, in 2021, with the trilogy finished and Star Wars in a position of needing to be repaired, she is extremely unlikely to be extended. We've said so for quite some time, and that is what our good friend Dictor von Doomcock's sources told him. According to his sources, there have been held meetings discussing the state of Star Wars before and after Kathleen Kennedy's reign, and her reign did not come out looking good. This time, she won't be renewed. Instead, according to Doomcock sources, she'll go where all executives go to die, namely to a new production company all of their own, where she can go back to producing. This seems very plausible to me, and there is plenty precedent for it. Well, Amy Pascal for one. I bet Kathleen Kennedy will want her future production company to enter some kind of deal with Steven Spielberg's production company. Go back to what worked. As for Lucasfilm, Doomcock's source indicates that Jon Favreau is the likely candidate to take over, though it is not a sure bet. The source also indicated that the cancellation of the Star Wars celebration both this year, but more importantly next year, was strategic, and the new management will be announced at Star Wars Celebration 2022. I fully agree that cancelling Star Wars Celebration 2021 was strategic, as I don't think there will be much to celebrate by then. However, I do think we will know who takes over Lucasfilm long before Star Wars Celebration 2022. And I also think there will be projects to celebrate by then, meaning Star Wars Celebration 2022 can actually be a Star Wars celebration, as opposed to a Star Wars wake, which is what Star Wars is in need of following the reign of Kathleen Kennedy. We will never see the original cast reunited on screen like they always should have been. Kathleen Kennedy took that away from all fans, all moviegoers, and all lovers of film. That can never be undone. But if they do remove the sequel trilogy from canon, as Doomcock sources opine they will, and then mostly set new shows in the aftermath of Episode 6, then there may still be hope for the future. On that note, be sure to pick up one of our awesome The Last Jedi is Not Canon t-shirts to show the world where you stand on the matter. They'll be a hoot at both Star Wars Celebration and any other upcoming sci-fi convention, whenever that may be. I also have to give some props to SC Reviews and Itchy Bacca for some of the clips used in this video. So go check out their channels and let me know your thoughts on all of this in the comments.